right now, 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 right now. Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We've got to add a little addendum to the show map today. So we start here on the daily. Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been getting bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest in everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about a fake breakout that is going on right now on Bitcoin. You see, Bitcoin has been in a major downtrend for over a month now. In fact, we've been in a primary downtrend for the last 5. And over last weekend, we saw Bitcoin attempt to create a new uptrend. On Monday, we detailed how that could possibly lead us to $70,000, but Bitcoin would need to actually confirm a buy signal from LUX ALGO, and it would need to break a very important downtrending level of resistance, and I didn't think that that was going to happen. On Tuesday, we talked about how Bitcoin could drop $8,000 all the way down to $54,000, but almost certainly it was going to drop down to $60,000 or lower. Yesterday, we talked about how Bitcoin needs to hold $60,000 or it would continue in its downward trajectory. And today, Bitcoin is attempting to backtest the 20 daily exponential moving average as resistance to confirm the downtrend that we currently find ourselves in. Today, we're going to be talking about the update on where Bitcoin is, where it's going, and why it is most likely not about to go into a major uptrend. Although we will also give you details on exactly what it would look like if we're wrong on that and how we would know that we're wrong on that so that we can go ahead and prepare ourselves for a long trade or for some kind of other activity should Bitcoin actually go through that rally and break bullish in a way that we don't think would actually happen. Let's pull chat up here. I love seeing you guys in chat. Welcome everybody to the stream. Thank you so very much for tuning in. I am very excited for y'all to be here. Let's give some big shout outs. Big shout out to Paul Torelli. Good morning. Welcome to the stream, my friend. Drian in chat said, "How is your wife, sir?" She is recovering, but we still have a lot of big question marks around her health. Honestly, it's been very difficult. It's been a big test in patience, a big test in faith for us. One that we passed, obviously, but it doesn't mean that it's not hard. So you guys can be praying for her. If you guys don't know, we have a 3-week-old baby, and he is in great health. But Mama, on the other hand, she's having some really bad headaches, and we're trying to figure out if it's something serious or not. The doctors aren't really giving us very clear answers, either because they don't know or either way. We're trying to figure out what's going on. So I appreciate all of your patience and love with us through that. Al Bundles, Crypto Trappa's in chat. Joe Bollier's in chat. Philly Skills 1428's in chat. Jay Ford is in chat. Said, "Good morning, Jeb. Love the show and love Jesus. Love it." Chico Esparza is in chat. Bjorn is in chat. Queen and Nevin. Welcome, everybody. TW in chat said, "Stay strong." Absolutely. Really appreciate all of you for being here. Let's do this. We got a lot to cover. Let's start off here with Bitcoin itself. I am not yet convinced that this little tiny bounce that we have seen out of Bitcoin is a reversal to the upside. In fact, I'm quite confident that at least at the moment, it is not. We're going to get to that here in just a second, but let's go ahead and start over on CoinMarketCap and detail some of our larger kind of macro point of view here. Bitcoin is currently up 1.87% in the last 24 hours, which is leading to this question of whether or not Bitcoin is about to go into a new major uptrend. I am not convinced yet that that is the case. Ethereum is up 1.87% as well, which is likewise encouraging, but also, just like with Bitcoin, we do not have a lot of confidence that a new major uptrend is starting yet, especially considering we've been under the auspices of this major corrective movement for the last 6 months or so. We're getting all kinds of memes over on X, for example, about, where is the altcoin season? We've been waiting for the altcoin season forever. I saw one this morning of, Voldemort's shriveled body from Harry Potter, and they said, what happened to him? And the meme says he held Ethereum in 2024. So people are getting very tired of the recession almost that we're having here in the middle of the bull market, and it's very common for people to be reassuring everybody, look, we're in a bull market. Look, we're in a bull market. I want to echo that assurance that yes, we are in a bull market, but we also don't know when things are going to start moving to the upside. People are freaked out right now, guys. People are absolutely freaked out about this election. And one of the big reasons for that is because of some of the things that Kamala Harris is saying that she wants to do if she gets elected. She wants to bring, and this is not even a political stance. I'm just reciting her own policies, right? She wants to bring corporate tax rate, to 28% from 21%. She wants to bring the capital gains tax rate from 20% up to 44.6%, and she wants to institute a never before seen 25% unrealized capital gains tax on assets that you have not sold. People don't understand that, but some people do. A lot of people do not understand how incredibly dangerous that is. But those of us who do understand how incredibly dangerous that is, understand that if she gets elected, that makes it a lot less savory to be invested in anything. Because an unrealized capital gains tax goes like this. When you hold an asset, let's say you have a $100,000 asset, when it increases in value to $200,000, even without selling the asset, under that tax plan, you would owe $25,000 in taxes even without liquidating the asset, which means that either you have to come up with cash somewhere else to pay taxes on an asset that you've not actually locked in gains from, or it forces you to sell the investment to pay the taxes, which means that people don't hold their investments for the long term anymore because they simply can't afford to pay the unrealized capital gains taxes without selling the asset, which turns everybody, bull, bear, or otherwise, into a bear. And it completely crashes the modern economy and leads us into an economic depression. And so I think that the fear of, oh my gosh, if she gets elected, that's what she wants to do. And I mean, she is the Democratic nominee, so it's possible. In fact, a lot of people are saying that she's leading in a lot of polls. If she does get elected, that freaks people out. And so that is one of many things that are holding Bitcoin down right now. That it's one of those things that, in my opinion, is holding all markets down right now. I think the S&P 500 will be running a lot harder if not for this very possible tax reality coming starting in November. In fact, they're trying to do this before they're trying to even pass this before they get out of office. And so this is a huge oppressive force on the cryptocurrency market and also on the stock market, because people don't want to have these unrealized capital gains if they're just going to be taxed 25% on them. And so that and many other things are kind of holding the markets down and suppressing them until November, until we get some clarity on whether or not this is going to occur. If she does get elected, then we've got to start asking the question, okay, is she going to be able to get this through Congress? Hopefully not, and honestly, probably not. But if she does, then that is absolutely going to continue to suppress markets until we have some clarity on whether or not that is going to happen. Here's what we also need to keep in mind. Bitcoin has been under a corrective movement for a very, very, very long time here, over the last 6 months, and people are looking for a break above that. And I do want to point out here, someone just mentioned the unrealized capital gains tax is planned just for net worth of $100 million. But worse, even because those people would just dump everything directly. Yes, that's true. So yes, I do want to point that out. It is supposed to be for net worth over $100 million at first, but when you're inflating the economy, $100 million is a lot less than it used to be, and that is not just going to stay at $100 million net worth. It'll come down the same way same way income tax started at 1%. Now it's up to 50, 60, 70% when you incorporate federal, state, and local taxes, depending on where you are and depending on your income bracket. Anyway. So those things are kind of holding Bitcoin down right now, and I anticipate that through November, you're going to see some suppression on Bitcoin, because this election is just so significant to the future of the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency market. You have a candidate that has policies that would just absolutely destroy the modern growth of the stock market and the cryptocurrency market, and then you've got a candidate that is extremely pro-crypto. So that creates probably the most FUD, especially the uncertainty part of FUD, that we have ever seen in the history of the cryptocurrency space. And so price suppression is in full swing. And that's why I bring up the politics here, not to get overly political. The reason I bring it up is because it does directly impact, and it is one of the biggest impactors that we have right now on the price action. And so that leads us to why I think that this is a fake rally. We've got 4 green candlesticks here. Bitcoin's looking phenomenal down here on the hourly chart. Looks wonderful. We've got the confirmed buy signal. We've got the confirmed buy signal here on the hourly chart. And if we look at this in a vacuum, we can say, oh my goodness, Bitcoin's doing phenomenally. My concern is this. Bitcoin is still beneath the 20 daily exponential moving average. In fact, it's kind of testing it right now. Even if Bitcoin does briefly break above the 20 daily exponential moving average, there is so much resistance right above it and so little bullish catalyst that I'm still very much in the camp of the bears. Over the weekend and on Monday, we talked about how there was a possibility that Bitcoin would be going into a breakout, but we needed confirmation. That confirmation never materialized. And so when we also look here at the visible range volume profile, you can see all of the exorbitant amount of VRVP support resistance that's directly above us. A massive amount of VRVP resistance is immediately above us. And so Bitcoin is going to need to have some kind of fight to get through that level. We had the Ethereum ETF coming online. Yay, that's incredible. ETH ETF launches. We're still dealing with overall negative flows. Bitcoin ETF launch. Great. The flows have slowed down. I will go ahead and show you the flow rate on that, because it is. It's very, very important. For Bitcoin right now, we're seeing kind of this stagnation. There's not a lot of new money coming into the Bitcoin ETFs right now. A couple $100 million, but not a massive amount here. If we look at the Ethereum ETF here, you can see same thing. It's stagnant. If anything, there's still more outflows than inflows. For the vast majority of the last couple of weeks, there's been more outflows than inflows. So it's almost like we're in a little miniature bear market in the middle of the bull market. I don't think the bull market's over. This is one of the biggest bull flags that we've ever seen. And I certainly believe that Bitcoin has a very bright future ahead of it no matter what happens in Washington, because Bitcoin is designed to be the way that we opt out of what goes on in Washington and in central government. But we do have quite a few headwinds in front of us that we need to consider from a technical standpoint. All right, now one of the things that we also want to look at here is that the Dixie has begun a rally over the last couple of days. This is significant because if the dollar currency index does start to rally, then what we end up seeing happen is that the Dixie and Bitcoin are inversely proportional. They're inversely correlated. So when Bitcoin goes up, it's normally because the Dixie is going down. And when the Dixie goes up, it normally causes Bitcoin to crash. This does not speak well to the rally that could be forming here on Bitcoin. Likewise, the United States stock market is still stuck here below all-time high. The S&P 500, the SPY rather, is sitting here at 562 points. Dow Jones, if we pull it up here, is sitting at about 41,000, but it's also likewise sitting right here at all-time high. Has not really gone on a major breakout confirmation just yet. I do think that will happen, but we have not seen it happen yet. So overall, the market is still here in this period of stagnation. And kind of like I said yesterday, what we are watching happen here is that Bitcoin is very thoroughly in a range. It's very thoroughly consolidating. It's not doing much. And frankly, the stock market over at least the last couple of weeks is not doing a whole lot either. And so what I want to encourage all of us to do is that we have got to remember that markets rally when you give them enough time if they are valid and valuable markets. And so Bitcoin brings real value to the to the global economy and to those of us that are trying to flee inflation in the United States dollar. Ethereum brings real value to those of us that are trying to opt out of the modern financial infrastructure. The United States stock market brings us real value in that it is tied to the success or failure of corporations in the United States of America. Real estate provides real value in the fact that people need places to live and they need places to do their business, as far as they need places to put a Chick-fil-A or put a Walmart or a Target. And so when you invest in assets that have real value, then pretty much no matter what happens with the market, so long as you don't have an authoritarian despot take everything over and seize everything in a fascist or a communist manner, or at least an authoritarian manner, then what ends up happening is you end up making money on that, because the default, if the government doesn't get in the way, is capitalism. I wonder why, because capitalism was the way it was intended. Of course, there need to be laws. Of course, there need to be consumer protections, but that capitalism was what was intended. It was the intended form of government. It was the intended form of economy. Capitalism is the form of economic activity that incentivizes those of us who want to go out and actually provide someone else a service with some kind of reward. It's the law of the planting and the sowing. You put seeds in the ground, and guess what you get as a reward? You get crop. In a capitalistic environment, which again is the default, it's the default. When you invest in something, whether you start a business or you buy a boat and you go fishing, or you buy a crab trawler and you go trap crabs, or whether you build a factory and you make a little widget or a doodad and you sell it to somebody who wants it, you made an investment of your time or money and you made a profit from it. And so when we have assets that provide a real value, like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, and they are being adopted, and their adoption rate is continuing to grow, which they are, then that is where we have the opportunity to make an investment in such an asset, because we can have confidence that that investment will bring us returns. Even if you're going to have to pay a 25% unrealized capital gains on it every single year. By the way, good luck calculating that, because what ends up happening is you pay 25% on the capital gain, and then what happens? If you lose money the next month, do they pay you? Where's the money coming from? Talk about increasing the national debt. Good Lord. You end up siphoning people's money in the good times and then giving them nothing in the bad times. That sounds a lot like government. All right, let's read a little bit of chat here, and then we will keep it moving. I really appreciate all of you for tuning in. Artloft Mallorca. Cool. So people will fail as long as they understand that power is given from the people to the government, not the other way around. Yes, we do need to remember that the principle of the consent of the governed is very important. That does not apply to God because he's perfect. But let me tell you something. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, RFK, Vance, Waltz, me, not one of them are perfect. And so therefore, none of us have the right to demand subjugation of another adult. It's not. That's not the way it works. Unless there was a crime committed and somebody needs to go to prison, which a lot of that has happened in Washington, for sure. The consent of the governed is something that we need to remember. If the people stand up and say, we don't accept this, we're having a balanced budget amendment. That there is a pathway for that in the United States Constitution. This is something that I want to push for as I continue to grow my career here. I want to push for a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. If 2/3 of the states will, by popular vote to approve a balanced budget amendment to the United States Constitution, Congress doesn't get a say, and the president is not allowed to veto that. If 2/3 of the states, by the way, 2/3 of the states are red. I don't know if the Democrats will vote for this. Some of them might. I don't know if the Republicans will vote for this. Some of them might not. But if 2/3 of the states, by a simple supermajority, 2/3, voted on that, on a proposal, then it would be able to be passed. The government deficit is a train wreck. I've talked about this before. Let me pull this up. I explained this to my wife last night. She was like, oh my gosh, really? I said, yeah. Check this out. So this is the United States U.S. government spending, fiscal year to date, 2024. Let's see if it'll load. Here we go. So this is the amount of spending in 2024. So $763 billion in net interest. It is the second category of expenditure for the United States federal budget. It's about 14% of the budget. $1.21 trillion goes to Social Security. We've got Medicare and Medicaid there, and VA, National Defense, and Income Security, and various other things. The net interest is money that is being paid on the debt that the United States government holds. Now, most of the national debt is debt that is held by the American public or by American corporations. You can even see here on the Treasury. Let's see here. I think I can find a website on this really quickly here. Let's see if they have. Nope, Treasury's not going to show it that easily. Oh, I have to order it. Yeah, no, I'm not going to order it. Anyway, most of the debt that the United States has is in the form of treasuries. And so what a treasury is essentially the United States Treasury raises money to fund the deficit. The Treasury puts up, they sell T-bills, otherwise known treasuries, otherwise known as T-bills, and so they pay interest on these. And the interest is directly proportional to the interest rate that is set by the Federal Reserve over at the effective federal funds rate. And so the Treasury rate is the rate that is paid to someone who loans the government money. So let's say I buy $1,000 in treasuries and they pay 4%. Then the United States government, and it's a 3-year term. That's called the maturation time. You know, the time to maturity. It matures in 3 years. So I have a treasury. It's a 3-year treasury. I put $1,000 into it. It's a $1,000 treasury, 3-year term, and it's 4% interest. So what's going to happen is that over the course of the 3 years, I'm going to be paid back the $1,000, and I'm also going to be paid back $120 in interest, because 4% on $1,000 every year is $40 times 3 years is $120. So over the course of 3 years, I'll be paid back 12% over 3 years. That's 4% a year. And so that is where a lot of the interest is coming from. Here's the issue. And this is why Bitcoin's important. You're thinking to yourself, Jeb, oh my gosh, why are we talking about debt? I'm going to explain this because this is exactly this is the biggest reason why we need Bitcoin. Because the collapse of the United States dollar is coming. It might be 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 years from now. If we don't do something about it, it's going to completely collapse. And Bitcoin will be the natural shoe-in to replace it. So this is why this is important. So just hold your horses. If you've never heard this, you need to hear this. Please listen. This interest payment grows very quickly. And the reason is, track with me here. The reason is because the Treasury continues to take on debt to fund the United States deficit. If we go over here to debt clock, this is 2020. Let's go to 2024. So the United States national debt is $35 trillion, right? When I started tracking the debt when I was 12 years old, it was like $16 trillion. It was 12. Let's go back over here. 2012. When I started following the debt, it was 16. Yeah, there you go. $16 trillion. $16 trillion half my life ago when I was in middle school. Now it's $35 trillion. The federal deficit is $1.8 trillion. $1.8 trillion. And in fact, the actual deficit is about $2 trillion, it says here. And so think about this. You have to borrow money to pay for the deficit. If there's a $2 trillion a year deficit, then that means the debt goes up by $2 trillion every year. This is the same way it works in personal finance. The government just has the ability to borrow more money than anyone else and has the ability to print more money than anyone else. The government has to borrow $2 trillion every single year to fund the deficit. Here's the problem. That debt's not free because they're borrowing the money from the American people through the form of treasuries, which they have to pay interest on. And because they have to pay interest on this debt, that means that the deficit grows. And since the deficit grows, that means that you have to increase the amount of debt that you take out. But since you have to increase the amount of debt that you take out, then eventually you have to pay more in interest. This is a little bit like maxing out a credit card and then opening up another credit card to pay the interest, not even to pay the interest on the original credit card. That's what this is like. You're opening another credit card to pay the interest on the original credit card, all the while the new debt that you just took out is accruing interest on its own. What ends up happening, and this has never happened before in the 248 years of the history of the United States of America, we've never seen a default. But what ends up happening is that people stop loaning you money because they don't know that you're going to be able to pay it back. Because they're concerned that you are so bad with managing money that you can't pay it back. And so what happens at that point in time is that the net interest grows instead of to 14% of the national budget. It grows to 15% and 16% and 18% and 20% and 22% and 25% and 30% and 40%. And there's only two ways for the government to raise the money to pay that interest payment that it owes the American people. The only two ways is, one, to borrow more money. But eventually the American people will stop buying treasuries because there will come a point in time where they don't trust the United States government to pay back the money that they borrowed from us. or they have to print money. Which means, on the one hand, eventually they lose the faith of the United States public, which means they cannot raise money anymore, which means there's a government shutdown that cannot be fixed without printing, or they continue printing, which is what they would do in such an event, and you lead to the debasement of the United States dollar, and target 2% inflation is a pipe dream. If we continue down this path, that's what happens. The complete and utter destruction of the American experiment. The end of our way of life comes. All of your investments are zero. Fails because there's no currency to pay the people that run the power plants. The modern agricultural system fails because there's no system to pay the people that run the agricultural industry. And you see the complete unraveling of the most powerful economy in the history of mankind, which leads the rest of the world to follow suit. Which leads the entire world with a question. Since the most powerful, most successful, most dominant fiat currency in the history of mankind failed, to where do we turn? Here. Where else? Once the United States dollar fails, which at this rate I guarantee you it will, it may not happen in any of our lifetimes, but at this pace, I 100% guarantee, I would bet anything, any amount of money on it, 100% at some point in time, the United States dollar fails for this reason. Because you can only kick the can so far down the road before people stop loaning you money. And when people stop loaning you money to cover the deficit, a normal person would go bankrupt. The federal government, since they actually own the United States dollar, can just print more of it and you lead into hyperinflation. That's the only two outcomes. Unless we get the deficit under control. That's the only two outcomes. Raise taxes, cut expenses, I don't care. Balance the budget. Step 2 of the financial sovereignty way. Slash and burn. Burn it to the ground until it's balanced. I don't care what has to go. Because the entire future is at stake. But guess what happens? The issue with government, the issue that has always been with government, is that government is powerful. And power attracts the corrupt. And so the corrupt get the power because they're willing to take it by any means necessary. And through their own evil and foolishness, they destroy the very seat of power that they so pridefully and foolishly sought. Which is what has been happening for a century or more in the United States. What happens when this experiment of running a $2+ trillion a year deficit fails? And we are not able to raise the debt ceiling anymore because it doesn't matter how much you raise the debt ceiling. Nobody's willing to loan the United States money anymore. Oh, what about the Fed? Well, the Fed is only able to loan the United States government money because it printed the money that backs the loan. It's inflationary. It's not free. Even the government doesn't get to print money like it's in Congress and get away with it. It doesn't work. The reason that there's inflation is because the government is printing the money like this. And so why is this so important? Why am I so willing to talk about the political side of this? Because it is the reason that Bitcoin was created. Are you getting it now? Are you understanding it? Do you understand why this market is important? Please tell me you understand why Bitcoin is a thing. Please tell me you understand. This website tells it all. USDebtClock.org. Guys, the national debt in 1980 was under $1 trillion. We're 35x in a generation. 35x again? Where do we go next? The complete collapse of the modern economy. Anywhere in the world, there is nowhere to run. If the United States, when Weimar Germany collapsed, you could at least run to Britain, France, or the United States. They were all going through booms. The Roaring 20s, you could at least get away from it. When the most powerful juggernaut of an economy in the history of mankind collapses, where do you run? What flight of capital? Where does the capital flee, huh? When the whole freaking ship's going down, what part of the ship are you going to run to get away from the ship going down? There's only one place you can go. Bitcoin. It's the only place you can go physically. And also, assuming we don't descend into absolute anarchy, you could go into real estate because real estate will always have value. But in this event, the United States stock market collapses, which again, this probably won't happen for 30 or 40 or 50 years. Well, I'll probably be old and gray and have great grandkids by the time this happens. But it will happen eventually if something doesn't change. The value is going to be, just like Milton Bates said, in guns, ammo, gold, silver, Bitcoin. And so, if I've not made it clear why we need Bitcoin yet, I'm not sure how else I can. I'm not sure how else I can. Let's read some chat. If we just tax unrealized capital gains by 25%, we can solve all our problems, right? Yeah, exactly. We can solve all our problems. No, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up what'll end up happening is it'll get so bad that the politicians on Capitol Hill will make a decision. They'll make a decision to, we can either unite and live or stay divided and die. And what's going to end up happening is they're going to be forced to slash and burn. And things like Social Security, gone. Half of the national defense budget, gone. Think about what that does to geopolitics. Medicare, Medicaid, bankrupt. They will end up having to start slashing this stuff, and then they will have to default on the interest. And the entire United States government will literally go bankrupt. That's what will happen if this doesn't change. And in that moment, those of you that worked towards being a whole coiner, I've been a whole coiner for 5 years now. Those of you that have worked towards being a whole coiner will be the richest people in the history of mankind, or at least at that point in time, because the currency that everyone else's wealth was held in stocks and in United States dollars, like somebody lit it on fire. Guess what they did? Just when you have a fire the size of the most powerful economy in the history of the world, it takes 100 years for it to light. It's sad to watch the world go this way, and it is one of the reasons that I have to lean so heavily on the Lord and know that we're never going to have the perfection that we seek, that our heart longs for in this world, in this life. What we are seeking is something that can only be found in heaven and through our Lord Jesus Christ. I am very, very, very grateful that one day I will die and not have to be a part of this sad world anymore. But I do intend to live as long as I can and bring as many of you guys with me as I possibly can to meet the Lord Jesus Christ in the sky, because he loves you, he loves me, and he came and he died and he rose again to save us from our sin, which requires eternal punishment from a perfect and holy God. And so please, see the writing on the wall. Look anywhere in the world. Where do you see perfection? Look into your soul. Don't you see the longing for it? Doesn't something not add up to you? Doesn't it not make sense? Doesn't it? Your heart, your soul, it longs for perfect. You walk into a room and it's perfectly organized and you feel good. You walk out in nature and it's perfectly set up the way that it should be and it feels good. You look at your finances and it's perfectly balanced and it feels good. Those of you that the doctors say you have OCD, maybe you do, I don't know. You want things to be perfect, and guess what? It feels good. It does to everybody. You're just more honest than everyone else. You will never find perfect in this world. You will only find that perfect came into this world one time. He lived, he worked miracles, he died for your sins to save you from hell. He took your punishment so you wouldn't have to. He lived the life that you should have so that you could go to the heaven that he created. His name is Christ, Jesus. And I implore you, follow him. Give your life to him. Surrender your entire life to him. This world is so broken. And during this life, things like Bitcoin may save your skin financially. But at the end of the day, if you don't have Christ, it's all for naught. Because, let me tell you something. Should it surprise any of us that when you look into the future, it always looks like the world is going to burn? That's because it is. Everything in this life will be destroyed. But Christ is eternal, and you can be with him in heaven forever. If you have any questions about that, I am always here to answer them. You can ask them in chat. If you have any concerns about that, if you ever think God's unjust, if you ever think God doesn't make sense, let me tell you something. A lot of the things that he teaches you will not understand until you give your life to him, because it's not about understanding. It's about love. It's about you loving him the way that he loved you. I didn't understand everything until after I followed him. After I followed him, yeah, okay, I understood. Logically. No, I got the answers I was looking for. I had to give my life to him first. And I had to come to him in a humble heart and say, God, I don't understand how this works. I don't understand. One of the things, for me, I'll tell you a quick story and then we'll get back to crypto because I know I'm off topic here, but it's important. It's far more important than anything else we could talk about. I was will my Fortnite account be destroyed too? Yes, it will. Yes, the entire world will burn. When I first came to the Lord, I was, I believed in, 13.7 billion years. I was going into astrophysics. I'd studied a lot. And one of the things that I could never understand is, how does abiogenesis occur? How do you create life out of nothing? How does the universe create itself out of nothing? How does intelligence create itself out of nothing? How do molecular machines create themselves out of nothing? It doesn't work. But I still didn't understand how young Earth could work, how it could work. So after I met the Lord, I came to him and I prayed a very simple prayer. Many times, this was not one prayer, but many times I prayed a very simple prayer. Lord, you know all things. You are perfect. You are the king of creation and of my life. I'm wrong because my opinion differs from yours, and I know that you know everything. I know that you're right. Show me how I'm wrong on this. Teach me. I'm humble. I want you to show me where I'm wrong. And you know what? He did. I got the answers I was looking for. And so to any of you guys, I'm speaking to you the same thing I wish I could have told myself 10 years ago. Any question that you have for the Lord, he has an answer for you. But is one condition. You have to give your life to him first. And you have to serve him with everything you have. And then he will give you the answers you seek. When my son, I'm a father, so I get it now. When I tell my son to do something, I don't accept him asking why. I accept him saying, yes, sir, daddy, and then doing it. And then as he's doing it, he gets to ask why. And then I'll explain it to him. But for his benefit, he needs to follow me first. And then I will give him, as a reciprocal response, I will give him the answer he seeks. But as his authority, he must obey me first before I will give him the answer that he seeks. And our Father in heaven is the same way. He doesn't want to keep you in the dark, but until your eyes are open to the light, how could you ever not be in the dark? It's not the way it works. So, I heavily encourage any of you that are on the fence, that are considering, following the Lord, give your life to him. Hell's hot. Heaven's perfect. Make a good choice, please. 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 It's too dangerous and too serious of a decision for me not to lay it out that simply. People have told me before, oh, you can't preach the gospel until you have a relationship with someone. Oh, really? I'm going to go and meet the Father in the sky one day, and I'm going to look down, and there's going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people that watch this channel looking up and saying, Jeb, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen? And I'll say, oh, because some guy told me that I don't have a one-on-one relationship with you, so I can't tell you about the hell that's coming. No. I love you too much to be silent on it. I'm not going to spend half of every single stream talking about it, but we haven't talked about it in a while, so I figured I would. Christ is king, and he loves you, and he died for you, and he gave everything for you so that you would share in his inheritance, in eternity, in glory, in perfection, in the perfection that your heart longs for. But I do want to also make something very clear. Christ's coming is an ultimatum. Bow the knee and give your life to him, or there are consequences. When you give your life to him, there are rewards. Please make a good choice. You will never, ever, ever regret it. Never regretted it a single minute in my entire life. He's always been there for me. He's always been there with me. And he will do the exact same thing for you. Give him your life. Do it right now. Bitcoin is sitting at just shy of $61,000. And to wrap the stream out here, the most important thing that we can watch out for on Bitcoin today, the most important thing that we need to watch out for Bitcoin today is whether or not it's able to break and hold above the 20 EMA here. I personally believe that Bitcoin is likely going to reject off of the 20 daily exponential moving average, and this will end up being a back test to confirm this downtrend. But we shall see. We shall see what happens. Ultimately, if Bitcoin does break bullish here, I would still want it to see a break above $64,000. If not, then we're really just nowhere near bullish territory right now. So if you're thinking about going into a long, I wouldn't do it yet. I would wait. There's not a great reason to go into a long right now. If you're looking to go into a short, I don't know if I would do that either, because you might get stopped out, because we are in a tiny little secondary uptrend. We're in a primary downtrend. There's a secondary uptrend. So we're not really going to short right now either. This is really a sit on your hands and wait moment. And it's also a moment to consider beginning your dollar cost averaging and consider starting to start putting money aside so that we are able to buy the dip. If a big dip comes, let's say Bitcoin drops down to $49,000. If that comes, then we would love to be able to acquire down at those levels. So yeah, that's my overall take on Bitcoin right now. And I really appreciate all of you for tuning in and listening to it. C. Lace said, can't balance the budget, the economy will crash immediately. Yes, if you balance the budget tomorrow, you would experience extreme pain. You would. It would be an extremely painful process. The first 3 steps of the financial sovereignty way is exactly what the United States government needs to go through, and it is a kind of a similar process. The first 3 steps of the FinSov way, at least the first 2, it's kind of a similar process to becoming a Christian. It's modeled after that. It's repentance. Step 1, repent of your foolishness and turn. It's too serious of a matter not for me not to put it clearly. If you're not seeing success in your finances, you need to repent and you need to turn. Step 1 is you need to get low and humble yourself and say, we've been foolish to get to this point. $34 trillion in debt. Why is the government not investing in the United States economy? Why does the government not? $35 trillion in debt. Second step in the personal finances is slash and burn. You increase income however you can, but most importantly, you decrease expenditure however you can. If there were a balanced budget amendment, I would not be against, and we actually trusted that it was going to stay there and not be, trampled on. I would not be against paying extra taxes for 5 to 10 years to clear the debt. I wouldn't be against that. I would probably actually advocate for that. Not much. The 80-90% of what happens needs to be on the expenditure side of things. But however you need to cut expenses to balance the budget, do it. I'm sorry, but it has to happen. These are nothing here is something that you want to cut. You've got to increase efficiency, and you've also got to stop making new promises. And then as time goes on, the income will increase because the economy expands, and as you stop making new promises, and as the income from revenues, from tax revenues goes up, then you end up starting to close the deficit. If we do manage to get a balanced budget amendment passed, I would probably put in the balanced budget amendment a 10-year time frame for the deficit to be closed. It would probably take at least 10 years to do it correctly. But the government simply cannot function like this forever. Simply can't do it. Simply cannot do it. I, the beholder, said, we will all bow the knee regardless. Yes, the Bible does say that every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Christ is the Lord. So you'll bow the knee eventually. Do it before you die. Because after you do, it's too late. It's too late. It's too good. And even if you don't believe, even if you think I'm crazy, it's too serious of an allegation. It's too serious of a proposition for you to ignore. Your eternity, your eternal salvation, your eternal fate in heaven or in hell, with or without God, with God's praise or with God's punishment. It's too serious to not look into it. It's too serious. It's too serious. If I've ever told you, if I've ever convinced you to do anything, if my influence on your life means anything, if I can influence you in anything, it'll always be to give your life to the Lord Jesus Christ. I would rather you do that and ignore every single other thing that I've ever spoken on in my entire life. I would sooner have you accept Christ and reject every single part of Jeb McAfee. Every single part. Deny every single part of me except him. You would be gain greatly. Greatly. But on the other hand, if you accept every single thing that I say and you deny him, you are in a line with the poorest people in creation because you don't have an inheritance in eternity. And I wish more pastors, I wish more preachers, I wish more evangelists were willing to put it as plainly as that. Jesus loves you, but God is just. Christ died for you to save you, and he made it very simple for you to be saved, but God is just. You don't get into heaven because you were good. No, not one in all of creation is good. Not me, not you. I am a wicked, evil individual outside of Christ's love. So are you. Whether we're in heaven or hell depends on entirely on whether or not Christ says we're allowed to come in, because it is his kingdom, the kingdom of heaven. And the only reason that he would tell you that you can come in is because he knows you, and because you allowed him to know you, because you gave your life to him. You don't get into heaven because you're a good person, and you don't go to hell because you're a bad person. You go to hell because you don't follow Christ, or you go to heaven because you do. Choose wisely. Joke's on the government. All my Bitcoin is in a Roth IRA. They can't tax crap. That's a good point, GT Rocker, actually. Yeah, with the I love how on this stream it just goes from super serious to a joke, just like that. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed today's stream. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Really appreciate all of you for being here. Thank you so very much. And yeah, we're going to wrap it out. Stay tuned. We got a lot of cool content coming. Before I go, guys, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.
Oh, I got a real good feeling.